Phew. Thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi. It's, things are going on, but I will do the live streaming today as planned. So this is the live streaming where I talk about Sashiko while doing the Sashiko stitching. This is not a tutorial, this is not a webinar, so I am not going to talk about some technical issues. Instead, I will talk about some cultural perspective or some other stories related to Sashiko. That being said, my website, psychostitches.com right now is hacked. I cannot believe that I'm going to say this word, but it's hacked. Has been 4 hours since I got a problem, and it has been pretty chaotic here. And the conclusion is that I cannot fix it myself at this moment. So I will hire somebody to fix that, and I hope it's gonna be back on the website within a few days, possibly 2 days. I'm really hoping in 1 day. This is the live streaming, so I hope that people with worries come here and watch it. The orders, I have one order, so if you are the one who placed the order, the order is safe online. It's on the upcyclestitches.com, but at the same time, I use another platform called Equid to process the order, and therefore I do not keep any information on the Upcycle Stitches at all. In fact, I don't keep any information on the Equid neither. So it should be safe. Equid is a pretty safe place, so your order should be safe for that. And if you order, I don't have any order right now for the sashikostory.com, so it should be good. It should be good. So that's one thing. And if you receive the email from me, let's say Gmail, my Gmail has this signature at the end of each email linking the upcyclestitches.com. Because of that link, the Gmail, Google may find, or probably will, diagnose that my email is risky, it's at risk. So just don't click any link at this moment. Even if you click the link, Google will block it. There's no way that you can access right now unless you consent the risk to go to the website. So do not go that. I will be fixing that malware soon, hopefully by tomorrow, if not by this weekend. So everything should be, well, my voice is not fine, but everything should be fine. No bleach at this moment, but I'm not really good at the IT issues. Yeah, well, it was probably about to happen, I guess. I don't trust the WordPress too much, and there was several things that was happening. So it is really frustrating, and well, but there's only one thing I can do, which is try to fix it with the professionals. And I will. Well, so that's that. That's that. And then today there's nothing I can do at this moment, I guess, besides waiting the reply from the professional expert to fix that. So yeah, I have to wait reply from him so I can do the live streaming without any issues. Just don't go to the website at this moment. If you need to place the orders on some Sashiko thread, please go to the sashikostory.com, which has the same items on the same price. Well, this is the exact reason I made a new website. So I was well prepared. No, I wasn't well prepared. I was kind of saving money. I could have upgraded to the security to the maximum, and I should have. Well, it's all about money to do that. But from now on, I'm not gonna take it. I am not going to take it easy too much. Anyway, I will shift the camera to this and then we'll start stitching. Wah! Oy, ay, 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 ay. Yeah, it is quite frustrating to see the red. It's pretty red. It was pretty red that your website is completely not at risk. It is risky to open that. That happened to me with one of my website. Always a pain, but they will help you out. Who are they? Well, but I think I ordered, I kind of like, outsourced that. So should be fine, should be fine. I'll be just right back. Yeah, it happens, right? Like I've kind of researched, there's a lot of things we can do to prevent it. At the same time, it's something happens. Oh yeah, IT professional. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it is IT professional. I don't think Google can help that. I don't think. Yeah, it's probably what happens to many websites. I don't know if I should disclose these numbers, but my website has about 600 page view every day. Page view, PV, or page visitors, probably page view. And 2 days ago, the visitor skyrocketed to 20,000, like even more. So I was kind of, whoa, that's something really, really like fishy, right? But the point is, I don't check the website dashboard every day. That's my problem. So, well. We cannot avoid this kind of troubles, I guess. It is very frustrating. It is very frustrating. It is very sad. It is very unfortunate. But because it happens quite a lot, quite often, there are many professionals who can offer the help. So, my ideal situation is that they or he or she can fix it while I'm sleeping tonight. It's like magic, but Chat GPT is a pretty good troubleshooting resources. Interesting enough. Oh, I didn't check that. I should have checked that next time. I will check that next time. I used Fiverr website this time. The first time to use that. So today I will talk about wording a little bit. So there's so many words that are misused, and I would like to talk about that, which I kind of talked about in Japanese, but I will kind of repeat the same thing in English. I work in visual effect, and it is pretty good. TD for Maya. I don't know how many people read today's my Instagram, but that's pretty much my honest feeling today or recently. Today's Instagram's post is quite honest. I have been honest for that matter, but this is quite honest. So I don't know what is the cultural appropriation, and I just learned the word cherry picking recently. But I think what I'm experiencing right now is the cherry picking. And they will, by doing the cherry picking, they will change, modify, and sometimes probably destroy the culture. It is ongoing process. So I don't know how, and I keep writing about those things, but I don't know how though. Like I feel like there's a very, very, very big um, trend flow in front of me that it does not matter what the origin says. And the origin doesn't have to be me. It can be anybody else, but they're not origin. That those, you know, those creating new platform and new contents are not the one who are origin. They don't speak the language. They have not lived in Japan long enough to understand the ordinary. And there's a huge risk behind that when they kind of deceive others by saying that they are the masters. And one of the things is that um, image to associate it to the word. And Sashiko, Boro, Zokin, all the terms are something that we find sort of fancy at this moment in the English field. Many people celebrate the word Boro or even Zokin for that matter. However, those words we kind of simply use are something that is very much filtered through the Western value and they are modified. So I would like to make Zokin is a quite misusage of the sentence. It's perfectly fine if they understand the image behind it, but it is very important to understand when they teach to others that the Japanese carries very, very, very negative image to the Zokin. Zokin is not something clean. It's very extremely dirty. It's Zokin. Zokin is define. See, you ask for the definition again. There is no definition though. There's no definition. There's no definition for that. It's like a rag. It's the rag. It's the rag to clean the floor, I guess. So by asking the definitions, you automatically assume that there is the answer for that specific product or specific items. And because that's what the market, that's the audience ask, the other teachers define the items, define the words so easily that they will not include all other histories or stories that they are supposed to explain. So the definition itself is very important, and it is perfectly fine to ask for the definitions, but there is no such a thing as the definitions, and for that matter, translation itself is not going to help neither. So, for example, the Zokin's translation is cloth for miscellaneous things. So it does not really make sense if I say it's the piece of cloth for the miscellaneous purpose. But I would say every single Japanese has the very negative image on the Zokin. If you're Japanese here, if I'm wrong, please correct me. Would you touch, not even drink, would you touch the Zokin before you eat bread? Not even wipe, touch it. Would you touch it and then would you eat after? You have to clean your hand before, after you touch the Zokin if you're gonna eat something. So Zokin is something to clean with, and it has a very, 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 very negative image. Not even negative, it's a dirty image. So that negative, dirty image is very strong that putting the Zokin on the frame and hang it as the art piece is very, very, very strange. It's not wrong. It's perfectly fine for that matter, but it's very weird. So, well, putting let's say that putting that as the art and then framing it is okay. That's okay. Let's say that's okay. But if they kind of, I hope that they don't do it. But if they put tea on the Zokin kind of mattress, and then if they say that's wabi sabi, that is very bad. Not even bad. That's really ignorant. And just doing itself for yourself is probably okay. That's the way to kind of enjoy it. But when they start teaching it as if that's a great thing to do, like that's the calming way to enjoy Zokin, or that's the way to meditate. Sometimes people might say that's the Zen work to do. That is completely inappropriate to represent the culture because that ignores all the images we carry as the ordinary to the extreme. But it's happening right now. It is happening. The Boro is the same way. Boro became too famous, and the Japanese do not use the word Boro so much anymore. Like Zokin. Zokin we use a lot. We use the word Zokin a lot in today's world, but not many people use the Boro anymore. So we kind of forget what it is. Um, Mark, no, it is automatically assumed to be dirty and never used on surface where the food never contact. Thank you. That's perfect way to explain that. And Keiko-san would not touch it. It would be like framing dish soap. Then dish soap is still clean to me, cleaner than Zokin. More like framing a used paper towel. The used paper towel to wipe the dirt on the floor. Let's say that your kid, if you have a kid, if you have a family member, he or she spilled milk on the floor. Milk spilled on the floor. You gotta wipe it, right? You wipe it, and in this culture, in the U.S., probably we wipe the spilled milk on the floor with the paper towel because that's the culture to dispose it. In Japan, they did not have the culture of paper towel that much, so they use Zokin to wipe it. Of course, they wash it and rewash it, but that wiped the milk on the floor, and it kind of sometimes it smells exists a little bit, even though you may clean it so much. So Zokin itself is a very, very good way to focus on sustainability because that will minimize the amount of paper towel usage. Less trash, right? But it is going to be a very, very, very scary thing if we do not, we as the Japanese and those who share the culture, to not to share this. And I hope that and you're not the people I have to deliver this message, but I hope that the world will find out this message, that it's pretty disgusting. Tsuchiko-san, Zokin is simply a cleaning cloth or fabric wipe that old hand towels become Zokin at the end. Wait, what? It isn't manual to frame your dish rag? It is. It's. Do you frame your 10 years old underwear with a lot of holes and then hang it where everybody visit, like living room, and then you worship it as the art? That's what we do now. In that case, I'm not following the trend at all. I saw a kid on TikTok calling his brand new patchwork bag Boro because there were hand stitching on it. Well, that's the trend, yeah. That's the trend. That's the trend I'm kind of trying to fight, but if you call it conceptual art, you can frame anything. Yeah, you can, but would you? If that is the art, I don't want to be the artist. That's another reason then I don't want to call myself artist. If we can be proud of ourselves putting my dirty underwear 10 years old with holes and then frame it and then call it art, well, in fact, force others to consider it as art. That is, I don't want to call it art. I'm not an artist. Can and should are not the same. Well, yeah, that's a very good point. I personally would not, I am not a smooth enough talker to pull that off. So those are jokes. Those are jokes. So I hope I understand that in this culture, when we explain something, we have to define. So Yogi asked for the definition, and I kind of said, like, we all ask definitions, and I kind of, light talked about it. Light talked. I did not take it serious, but I understand the importance of the definition. So I would like to define. So this might probably help. So sashiko itself is a form of hand stitching that what I'm doing right now is called sashiko stitching. We have a different form we call kata. It's like how to hold a knife. When you use the Japanese knife, you might hold the knife a different way. If you are using Chinese thin knife, you may hold it differently. If you have a fruit knife, they're different knife, different cooking style, different way, different form to stitch. Sashiko has the different way to do that, and I'm trying to pass down the way we practice Sashiko. So, are we okay with the definition of Sashiko for now? And that's not the full picture of Sashiko. That's just a very simplified version of definition. So please don't get me wrong that this is the only definition. That's kind of like a very roughly summarized definition to go to the next step. So Sashiko is a form of hand stitching, and that developed in Japan. And everything else, let's say Zokin, Boro, and other thing is fukin, which you may find a lot of samples on the Japanese Sashiko website. It's the trend in Japan, like the last 10 years or so. Fukin, as well as daifuki, fukin, daifuki, Zokin, Boro, those are the same thing. Technically the same thing. The difference is that when we look at it. So let's say I have a t-shirt. I have a t-shirt, right? T-shirt shouldn't be the fukin. I'm sorry. Forget about it. Just forget about it right now. I get a new sarashi fabric to make fukin. That very clean new sarashi cotton fabric can be a beautiful fukin to wipe your dish, like food dishes. So after you wash your dishes, that kids can wipe, or other people, husband can wipe the dishes with the fukin. That's the clothing, like a dish cloth to wipe the water from the dishes. If you keep using, you can of course stitch on the fukin too to make the fabric stronger as well as to make it cute or more beautiful. If you keep using that fukin, at some point, by using so many times, it will start kind of looking dirty. You may accidentally wipe some of the tomato sauce left on the dish, or by simply using it every day, that fukin will get somewhat dirty. When the dish cloth becomes somewhat dirty, we no longer use that fukin to wipe the dishes, and then we probably bring the new one to wipe the new dishes, but we do not throw away the old fukin. The dirty old fukin will go to the another cloth to wipe the table. It's not as clean as the one to wipe the dish, but this becomes the daifuki, which can clean the table or some surfaces, not the floor, but surface. It's the same cloth though. It's the same fabric, but the first station they stop at is the fukin. After they spend a lot of time in that one station, they move to the next station, so-called daifuki. After they use the daifuki for a long time and they become so dirty that they don't want to use it on the table, then they start using that daifuki to something else, including the floors, toilet, entrance, something that around something outside of the kitchen area. Probably not bathroom neither. Like it depends on where. It depends on how much they feel comfortable. I wouldn't use Zokin to wipe my sink, and that's more like the image that they carry. So in those process, the fukin becomes daifuki becomes Zokin. They may require some of the patching or some of the stitching to reinforce or to make it somewhat like a shape. That stitching, that adding stitches are called Sashiko as well. So they stitched Sashiko, they did Sashiko, and then they made stitches to make fukin, dishcloth, for the purpose of making fabric stronger and also decorations. At the same time, in between those stations, sarashi, fukin, daifuki, we may add stitching, and that's called Sashiko. So after that daifuki, the next station is called Zokin. But by the time the fabric becomes Zokin, it is quite damaged. It's very tattered. It's dirty. You may have a big hole. So many people in today's society throw away that Zokin. After Zokin, many people throw it away. However, few hundred years ago, or for those who do not have a choice to replace Zokin so easily, they kept stitching and stitching to reinforce the fabric, to repair the fabric. When they repeat those process by layering, and you can layer two Zokin together to make one Zokin. And by repeating that process, you will find it to be reached to the point of Boro. So it's more like a chronological stations. The vehicle is Sashiko, train is Sashiko, and then each word are stations. At the same time, of course, one step can be skipped. Not every Boro is from Zokin, because sometimes Boro is made from the jacket. Jacket does not go to the Zokin so much. Jacket goes as the jacket until it becomes like Boro. So the starting point may be different, and then the process in between might be different. So it's not like a single line, but Boro is more like the ultimate result of those stitching, and daifuki, fukin, Zokins are the stations in between those steps. And in order to connect those things, we have to kind of add stitching. Without the stitches, probably we cannot use it as the cloth. So to the process of adding the stitches is called Sashiko. And yeah, I think that explains. It's not a definition, but it's more like the word explanation. It's a long story, but that's the simplest explanation I can think of. It still eliminates a lot of stories around it, so I want to ask around if you have any other Japanese around it. But I think that's quite okay to say that it is the generalized idea. Okay, I'll go back to the comment. So people stitch on Zokin. Yes, so as I hope that this explanation explained that. I personally would not. I am not a. Sorry, I read that. Are Boro items ever re-dyed traditionally? May I don't know. I don't think so. No, dyeing is more sacred to things to do. So I don't. That's Boro is too dirty to dye, and I don't know anybody who actually dyed. I'm not saying nobody did it, but in general, as long as I know, they did not re-dye the fabric because that's too weak. That's too fragile to go through the process, especially if the purpose of the dyeing is for the color or for the decorations. It does not make any sense. Tsuchiko-san, when I make zokin from old worn out towels, I cut in size what I want and simply sew it together. If I want any decorations, I could, but usually I don't spend time on zokin. So not many people spend time on zokin because zokin's goal is to clean and then be kind of in the trash at some point. Like it's more like a reusable paper towel for that matter. And anything can be zokin for that matter. You can use the t-shirt that the t-shirts I'm using right now, this black one can be zokin. Well, I don't use black fabric too much because I don't know if the dirt kind of gray spot on the white zokin explains how much cleaning I did. So I usually use the white fabric to make zokin, but I use the dish towel, then I use it for the table, and then I make it zokin. I can show you the sample later on if you want to. I ask because I will tie-dye shibori dishcloth when they are old to cover stains. That's like way before that's really the first stage of the fabric yet. Many people dye fabric to hide some stains or to damages, and that's more like the stations closer to the very, very early stage of the fabric. Boro and Zokins are very, very, very late stage of its life. It's almost over, but we don't decide when is the over. So it's perfectly fine to dye, but not zokin. You can of course dye fukin. Dye I wouldn't dye fukin either. So it's probably between dye fukin and fukin if I were to dye it. Would it be accurate to say the fabric goes through life cycle? Then that's probably what I should have read that first. So each fabric has its life cycle, and each stage has the name on it. T-shirts can be a t-shirt. I don't think that t-shirts should be the dishcloth. That's kind of disgusting. Do you want to use somebody's used t-shirts for the dishcloth? And I don't want to even wipe the table with somebody's t-shirt. So t-shirt is gonna go to the zokin to wipe the floors probably directly. So it's personal preference. If you feel okay to wipe the dish with your bath towel, which I don't know, which I wouldn't, but that can have another station. So this one is just a towel, and I wipe my face with it. And if it's really, really get dirty, this will not gonna go to daifuki. It's gonna go to zokin if it's really, really bad. But it has probably more life, more like years. So we cannot make Boro authentic one tomorrow, but we can make it when we can spend enough time on it. So we can make zokin. And sometimes fabric has its life to be just zokin too. If somebody needs zokin, they might be born as zokin, but the final stage of the fabric is when they dispose it. And so they will find a stage right before getting into the trash, very, very close to the disposal bin, we call it, well, they called it Boro. We don't probably call it Boro because we put it into the trash before that. So is Boro the only stage that absolutely requires stitching? Because all of the other stages can just be stage of the same cloth, but Boro requires repair, patching, layering. For that, Boro even doesn't require stitching too. In order to shape what Boro is like, it requires stitching, but it does not have to. But they didn't have other choices. If they can form the fabric somehow without stitching, they would use the fabric. Piece of rag hanging everywhere is called Boro too. It might have some stitches, it might not have stitches. So either pieces, either station does not require stitching for that matter. However, if we do not add the stitching, that ruins the whole purpose of this culture because they did not have a choice to replace the fabric, so they wanted to use fabric longer in order to delay this speed of deteriorating fabric, in order to appreciate and then make it last longer so that we don't have to worry about replacing it, is called Sashiko. So of course anybody can have the dishcloth, like fresh new dishcloth from Sarashi without stitching, but that is not Sashiko itself. That's just daifuki without Sashiko. So we wouldn't call it Sashiko fukin. It's just fukin. But by using it, it is more wise to add stitching if they have choice. So of course there are probably some stages without stitching, but in order to make this process more efficient and more productive, more human culture like, they use the Sashiko. So it's not for the relaxation, it's not for the pattern for that matter. It is okay to apply it right now, but the original story is like that, and we Japanese still carry that at some point. That's why we have different image on each word. So I was planning to fix a hole on the dish towel, old but lovely soft cotton. So it's going to on the way to becoming Boro. Yes, it is. Only if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. But every single piece of fabric can be Boro if they want to. It's the matter of when they stop using it. So if somebody say that we cannot make Boro now, that person does not understand anything about Boro for that matter then. Any piece, like this piece of fabric can be Boro if I keep using it. I'm not saying should, can. It's your choice. And fix, I really appreciate you putting the double quotation mark fix. Fix is another kind of perspective when you look at it. Many people understand Sashiko and Boro as the patchwork or fixing. Like visible mending became a very big trend. So they think that Sashiko is the way to fix the fabric. No, it's not. It can be used for the fixing purpose, but because they did not want to go through the next station too early, too fast, they wanted to delay the progress. For that purpose, they stitched first to make fabric stronger so that they don't have to fix it. They don't have to make it Zokin so early. Of course, it depends on what they wipe all the time. So regardless of the stitches amount, they may move to the next stage earlier. But again, that's something we can choose right now. But that's the time that they did not have the choice we have right now. So I hope it is making sense. And that's the reason I'm kind of speaking up this much. because not many Japanese are speaking up about on this because it is quite normal for us. We don't really. I didn't even think like this before. I wonder how much modern laundry done in machines has changed how we see things as clean or dirty, especially in the West. Hand washed cleaning rags would feel dirtier. Yeah, so if we when we focus on the modern fabric, those kind of bleaches, laundry detergent, those things tend to destroy the fabric, yet makes more clean. Hand washes might not remove the dirt much, yet they may make the fabric last longer. It's the choice. And I think hand washing is more kind to the fabric for the purpose of making the fabric last longer. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying it's the difference. And also, it's kind of interesting that the fabric we can get right now from the manufacturers, they expect the shorter period of lifetime for the fabric, and as a result, it's not as strong as the fabric they used to get in 200 years ago. That's kind of ironic. The fabric that is very old, and we call it antique fabric or kofu, old fabric, they are very fragile because of the damages or aging, but they are stronger in long term because they already survived 100 years. And that's one reason we use vintage fabric a lot. Because I want them to use the fabric longer time than just a few months, especially when we add stitching this much. And when we use the fabric, I often say that you can use any fabric, but the reason we recommend this type of indigo dye fabric or other fabric that I offer occasionally is that these fabrics are following the traditional way to make it, so therefore this can last decades. As the result, it has more possibility, more chance to go through the slow process of being Boro. If the fabric is too weak and if it jumped to the Boro phase too fast, it may not look like the Boro we kind of admire right now. So it is about the choice. But I just hope the conclusion of this talk is that the Boro is not a technique. Please don't take it Boro is like a technique. So it's not a style neither. So that young brand on the TikTok saying the Boro as the brand name is the trend, which may be destroying the culture. I don't think that TikTok brand owner, whatever, changed the culture much because they won't do it. What I'm worried about is those who, again, teach as the masters, not the guide. Those who think that they know about it enough without even talking to Japanese, and they have this audacity to teach as the master, not as the guide. If you're the guide, that's fine. But if teaching ignore this kind of story, if they cannot explain this, then what kind of master is that? This is not something. This is something pretty much all Japanese can explain if they have enough English proficiency. So I wonder how. Oh, I read that. I'm sorry. Keiko-san, I don't quite understand how the word Boro used in the US. How do you differentiate Boro and Kofu? I think I will use Kofu but not Boro. Kofu becomes Boro. But the clear definition, there's no boundaries. Any Kofu can be Boro and any Boro can be called Kofu for that matter. It depends on when. If the kofu looks like more solid fabric, then we don't probably call it Boro. If the kofu has a lot of holes, we may call it Boro to be fabric. If the kofu requires the stitching to keep it as the fabric, then we can call it Boro. But in this trend right now, that's the general explanation. In this trend, boros are already done. They are already gone, in my understanding. So the boro you can find from antique market, they might be a surviving boro or they might be dead boro. The point I said dead means that some of the boro are gonna be washed out. If you wash the boro, you have to go through the risk of losing everything. Fabric melt. You may not believe it. I've done that. I've lost so many money on that. Fabric melt. So if you get a really nice boro-ish look fabric, and then you decided to stitch on it to make it more, stabilized, but it stinks. So let's wash it now, so that I can stitch on it. Then if you wash it, half of the textile can go into the drainage. So there's no clear line, but it's on the same line. It's like, this might make sense more, but can you differentiate gohan and okayu? Okayu is like a pottage. It's like a very soft, liquidy, gooey rice thing. And the rice is rice, right? Rice bowl. Gohan is the rice on the bowl. And there are clear definition difference, but where to draw the lines can be very personal preference. And I think kofu and boros are similar to that. I mean, there are boundaries, but my boundaries might not be the boundaries of yours. I was shocked at first when people say Boro is beautiful. Yeah, welcome to. Well, I'm there. I've done that. I've been there. I was shocked at first when people say Boro is beautiful, but I guess people say that because the intention to save and keep using by patching is beautiful, not Boro itself. I almost agree with that. One thing I don't know is that some people may find the beauty in Boro itself. Of course, the idea and the process itself is beautiful, but some people may find the beauty in the actual art piece. And that is why it has so much value on it. I am not following it very well, but that's most of the Japanese I know from the kind of, I don't want to say class, but social class that they had to stitch, or Sashiko artisans, everybody hates Boro or even concept of Boro. But those who had a choice to appreciate the fabric, especially those like a researcher, academic student, or researcher, or teachers, professors, they might find it beautiful, and that's why it may be left behind. It's not a disagreement. It's just I don't know that. I cannot just declare that right now. I mean, some are beautiful. I'm sorry, you wrote. I should have read that before that. Some are beautiful, but for me as a Japanese boy, is a word to say something worn out or dirty in a negative way. Yep. I'm sorry, it's my bad. I should have read the second comment. The chasing a thread. As a Westerner, I think what people find beautiful about Boro is the history. We love a story of people working hard to keep going. It is not always physical beauty of the thing. Yeah, it depends. Some may, though, find it beautiful without a story too. I don't know. That's what art is about, in my understanding. So, Gohan no Kayu example was very easy. It's a kind of very extreme example. So, let's not fight about that. Like I like the very hard, katai, very hard rice. So if somebody makes really, really soft rice, I say, well, it's like okayu today, and I don't like it. Well, I'm a Japanese man for that. We have the story of the Velveteen Rabbit, the toy that was worn out because it was loved until it became real. Yep. We really have the same culture. Your ancestor probably had very, very similar cultures. It's just not recorded or it doesn't have a name on it. And that's the only difference. But to clarify this one, so I spent my childhood with many Sashiko artisans in Japan, right? At most time, like the peak time, it was about 40, 50, 60. I don't know if it's 60, but many Sashiko artisans. Most of them are gone, unfortunately, but I have spent so much time with them. None of them stitched Boro. They all despised it. We had a store, was selling something like a furoshiki or jacket with a lot of stitches, like this type of stitches, not this type of like a random messed up stitching, but more like pattern stitching, jacket, bags, noren, everything. They were very proud of stitching on the new fabric so that the item can last long. But they never mentioned the word Boro, even after the Boro became somewhat trend. So as long as I know, none of them went to the museum because that's not something they wanted to enjoy. In fact, they probably did not want to go back to that era that they had to stitch to happen to have the Boro. So Boro was not something to make. Boro was something to happen to have, unfortunately, because we didn't have anything to replace it. So the best way to make Boro is to keep using the same underwear for 5 years, 10 years. It will look like Boro at some point. If you have to show that underwear to someone, you may want to fix it. You may want to patch something. So find something you use every day, like significantly, and then use it. If you want to if somebody want to make Boro, authentic Boro, that will be the authentic Boro. And let's see if somebody else find it beautiful or not. And they might. That's the trend right now. But I would appreciate and I would honor that process rather than cutting some like colorful fabric and then calling it Boro. I don't know if I would call it beautiful. It's very Western things to see beauty in someone's struggle to survive. That's probably what I'm kind of fighting back. Yeah. It's very Western things to see beauty in someone's struggle to survive. But I do appreciate the connection to the stories that is represented by the Boro. It's a surviving piece of someone's history, and I find that profound. And that is the reason I keep sharing, I guess. So the Sashiko, Boro, and of course Zokin, those words introduced in English are not wrong. Their descriptions are not that wrong completely. Boro is actually the worn out fabric. So it is true, but because I don't know why, but because of something, they eliminate the link. They simplify it by eliminating these kind of stories, probably to make money more, to simplify, to maximize profit. I don't know what it is, but they simplify the stories too much, and as the result, it becomes something else. And those who are here right now, I really appreciate it. You will not do that. If you make Boro, if you happen to make Boro, if you decided to make Boro, that is gonna be the Boro because you are now listening to what I'm saying. So, but you who are here are unfortunately very minority side. And the bigger trend is wiping out those smaller stories. And they tried to mix a lot of things together. This Boro Daifuki Zokins are just that. From this historical story, that's just that life cycle of the fabric. That's it. But when they want to sell something, they might add some stories, which is not true stories, to make it more comfortable for those who do not understand Japanese culture. So some people might say that making Zokin is meditative. Well, it can be meditative, but you are fixing something extremely dirty. As long as we don't leave those people's, I would say, struggles behind, I think we can enjoy the culture differently. But I don't feel that the current trend right now is involving those Japanese who struggled or even struggles right now. In order to define what Boro and Sashiko is, this much explanation is minimum. So I talked about it for about 1 hour, let's say 45 minutes. That is the minimum amount of explanation I have to do to even explain 10% of what it is. And it cannot be explained verbally, fully for that matter. So I'm kind of scared of writing a book because the book can simplify these stories a lot. I prioritize the YouTube because at least this will keep, unless there's no malware, it will keep these videos almost forever. Unless there's YouTube, this website, this video will be archived, so somebody might find it someday, sometimes, to really understand what Sashiko Boro Zokins are. Whew. Wow, it's 10 o'clock and I stopped at the right time. Because I have a long night after this, I gotta wait his reply, the expert reply. So I will keep 2 more hours. I'm not gonna keep stitching for 2 hours, but I will wait until 12 o'clock tonight. So I will go a little bit more. I picked the thread anyway out, so I would go a little bit further. They said that it's about 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in his time, the profession. I use the Fiverr. So I gotta wait for his reply. You could collect your stories and present them as the collection without them seeking to define Sashiko. That's my dream. That's my dream. That is my dream, and I am looking, not even looking for, hoping for, hoping to have someone who can do that for me. I mean, I should do it. I will do it. I'm sorry. I cannot ask somebody else to do that. It's just, I'm pretty lazy and After all, I'm the stitcher. So if I have a chance to stitch or write those stories, if there's a time, I would stitch. So, and this might be like little naive things to say, but after all, although my voice will be archived, my writing may be archived. At the same time, though, people who can talk about it will be gone. That's the flow of time. And what I'm doing right now was defined as like a little bit too late to do because the major trend is too big that the majority of the people don't want to even hear about it. And that might be true. And that's one reason that I'm having a very difficult time to go through it. At the same time, I kind of accept that we will lose our voice soon or later, and sometimes word may be too much to explain what it is. And for that, I may be focusing, it's just the excuse, but I may be focusing on creating it rather than talking about it. This piece is going to be a nightmare without being able to do unshin. Unshin is the form of hand stitching that we teach. It's not about the accuracy. It's not about even stitches. It's not even about stitches. It's about something else that I teach on the. I personalized when I see your hand. It's something else that I teach. Those even stitches or speed are something comes with it, not aim to. But it will be a nightmare if we don't, let's say that if there's this fabric this size and the pattern is pre-printed with the stitches size already defined. If I have to follow that one by one, that I'm gonna lose my thing. I am gonna lose it. So this is actually already the sample of someone. Either someone was really out of mind or crazy or eccentric to do it one by one, or there was something that was enabled to do this. And if it's only one piece, it's gonna be the matter of discussion if he was crazy enough to do it one by one. But if it's more than one, they have to figure out what was it different, what was that behind it. They gotta find the explanation. I would. So I think leaving a lot of things is more important. And at this moment, talking about the priority, my stories can be done 10 years from now. But making pieces is very, very, very urgent because those who can stitch, those who can actually stitch, who is very quiet, who is not teaching Sashiko at all, but who are actually preserving the Sashiko I talk about, they are older, much older, and they don't have longer time to make it. So I prefer to make something together with them rather than focusing on the word that I may be able to do it by myself later on. Right now, it's the kind of last moment that we can focus on making. Although I'm meeting many, many younger generations of people who can do the similar things, at the same time, we are about to lose some of the masters in Japan. Well, that's another reason I restarted the Japan tour. I was gonna wait for 5 or 6 years until my daughter becomes old enough to stay here, without our help. But they say that some of the students say that, well, you may have 5 years, but they might not. And they include them. So that's a very good point. I mean, they will. I hope that they will have 5 more years, but we don't know that. And it is a fact that as we go, as we age, the risk increase. It's kind of human nature. We cannot ignore that. So that's a very beautiful that's a very beautiful excuse that I'm not doing it. It's excuse. Like if I have a time to play Switch, I should be writing. But video diaries with older artists might be a good compromise. Well, they don't want to be on the film. They don't want to even. They don't want me to use their name neither. Some don't mind, but some do. So I think we make that. Not make. Well, that of course that's ideal, but let's see what we can do. I want to go on an art supply shopping trip to Japan one of these days. Yeah, that'll be fun. Ling, I'm not sure about the disappearance of Sashiko even if the masters are gone. The works they have made will last for a long time. Yeah, and that's something I am trying to preserve, I guess. So I don't want to draw the line between the traditional Sashiko and the current Sashiko because the traditional Sashiko is still alive. Some people talk like as if it's gone, but they do exist. There are many people who actually do that. So I do not like the kind of designation or categorization of, well, this is the old fashioned, this is new. Well, that's not a new, that's just modification based on your preference. New requires learning, but well. So how how alive they still are? What do you mean by how? I am alive here. Ah, just blur their face like they do. Oopsie. But yeah, like they didn't like camera itself, so it's well, probably they don't mind GoPro or something then. Well, that's what I'm doing actually. I have quite many. This is something I'm proud of myself in teaching, but I do have more than 100 students in Japan too. Those are the Japanese, like current Japanese people who didn't have chance to learn the sashiko from their families. So they're missing links. I'm too late to speak up, so they are missing links already. But I am very proud of myself that I'm not only teaching in English, but I am teaching in Japanese, and the Japanese are interested in what I'm offering. And those Japanese are becoming the next artisans. And not only Japanese though, many non-Japanese who took my classes are getting like the artists. They are some of them are extremely great, extremely skilled. I'm sometimes jealous to some of those. But so it's not done yet. And that's one of the things. Oh, yeah, so the art pieces are always somewhat alive, but just focusing on just Sashiko, it's my personal opinion, so it can be wrong, but in my personal opinion, there's a big difference between the Sashiko art piece behind the glass and Sashiko piece in the ordinary. So we don't really contribute to the museum that much because Sashiko shines in the ordinary life. So we rather offer it to somebody who's wear that every day or every season. It's difficult, but one day they might be in the museum. But that's more like how we define, how we could not even define, how we categorize those two things. Actual Sashiko, alive Sashiko are very, very good. Like, I want them to touch it like this. If it's behind the museum glass, they cannot probably do like this kind of thing. So, I want everybody to do that. Oh my god, something got stuck. Oh. Yes, very cool to be part of the continuous living lineage. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you being, part of it. Do you know the Instagram account Siamurais? I don't know. I will look up now. I hope they don't block me. There are some account they block me, so I cannot even go there. Japanese inspired appeal designer, antique Japanese folk textile. Not interested though. Sorry. If if you are interested in the next Sashiko or art or fashion for that matter, go to. There are two accounts that I kind of support, or they understand. They're trying to respect the Sashiko very, very much. Unlike other brand, they're not focusing on Sashiko much, but they very much focus on the philosophy of Sashiko for that matter. We sometimes contributed to them, and they now use the. I don't know if I consider that as Sashiko, but they started the brand called Sashiko Gals. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me for the naming issues, but that's probably the brand that I'm looking forward to see what is going to come next. Okay, one last thing. So I keep saying that the next word, like this live streaming was all about the word, right? So the terms. The next term that I am kind of thinking coming to the trend is the minge. And the minge is translated as the folk art, if I have to translate it. But there's an exhibition in London, Williams Morse Gallery, right? I think it's still ongoing. The curator of that Williams Morse Gallery did a fantastic job to translate minge to the today's communication language. They translated or interpreted minge as the art without heroes. And as I keep saying still, that's a fantastic translation. I wish everybody can translate like that, but it's not, of course it's not explaining enough, but it's explaining a very, very core factor of minge. And it is very difficult to create the Sashiko piece without specific heroes because we tend to be heroes, right? Like this one, I made it. So I may be putting myself assertion or self, motivation, not motivation. I don't wanna be. I'm not asking for the recognition too much, but I may be asking like unconsciously. So what we are doing, what I am hoping to do in the US as well, and what I'm doing in Japan is to make one piece of the Japanese, the Sashiko jacket or Sashiko piece, with asking multiple Sashiko artisans who live today to make one piece. And that will be probably our interpretation of Minge. In order to kind of follow the Minge, our society is not designed to do that. We kind of appreciate it. We can only appreciate it. We can only learn from it. But in order to recreate it, it's going to be more difficult to do that. But I think what we can make is going to contribute to that world from different angle. And in order to do that, I think my teaching is valuable for that matter. The Unknown Craftsman by Yanagi Soetsu is a great book. Yep. So if you are... Mark, are you Japanese? If not, I'm sorry, but your understanding of Japanese is very, very much Japanese-like. But Mark is very, non-Japanese name, but, we cannot judge that. But I sometimes say Japanese, I sometimes say non-Japanese, but there's a definition for those words too. I don't want you to kind of categorize how it looks. There are so many non-Japanese people who are more Japanese than I am. One of the significant thing is that they are more humble than I am, so they do not speak up. That's very unfortunate, but I think they should be speaking up more, but I am not Japanese for that matter. I'm really reckless. I'm speaking up like this. That is gonna define me as non-Japanese for that matter. So it is quite difficult, but still, this is something I gotta do. All right. Thank you so much for watching this Sashiko Live streaming on Thursday night. And as always, although my website is down right now with the being hacked, I am gonna do my best to recover it as soon as possible. And I got a warning from YouTube that dozens of my videos are not following the guideline, and I got panicked, right? Like, no, I don't say any cursing word. I don't even say S word or F word. So your order, like all the orders are in a good shape right now. I'm taking care of all the orders. Another website is still ongoing. So if you are in need of supplies, please check another website. My point is that the YouTube gave me the warning that my contents have some violent. But I'm just talking about Boro or why Sashiko Thread is so good. And I checked all the contents. This was happening this evening, right before I got an email from the Google saying like my website was hacked. Turns out, I of course submit some appeal, and then they replied to me quite fast that the video itself has no problems. So the problem was the link that has on the description area. I was linking my website, which has diagnosed as the risky website. As the result, they define my video as the dangerous contents. And probably AI's job, which I really understand that. So that's why I was very worried about the channel health for a few hours afternoon. Like, is this because of the dislike button? What did I do? Like, what's going on? So my point is, I'm sorry if you are here as a new. If you haven't liked it yet, please share. Please give me the like button. Please click the like button. It will help me to stabilize this YouTube channels. And the more higher likes I have, they define it's a healthier channels, even if I receive a lot of report from like somebody who doesn't like what I'm saying. So that'd be really appreciated if you could do that. And that's about it. I will soon announce the possibility of a Japan tour in 2025 with the actual information. I have been receiving quite many requests to make it happen. I am going to Japan in the November 2024, and that tour is fully booked. So I am planning to do that in 2025. Pretty much same tour. So I don't know if I'm gonna bring my daughter next time, but this time I'm gonna bring my daughter. I have been telling people about my channel to offset your one fan. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I am not Japanese, but I have been together with one for 12, 20 plus years. Wow. I respect you. Wow. Wow. So that makes me more Jewish than I am Japanese. I have been together with one of those well, a long time. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes really, really sense. That makes sense. So if somebody is teaching Sashiko with the Japanese husband, I may change their mind. Like that's one way to understand Japanese. Either way, husband, wife, husband, spouse, I don't mind. But having a Japanese spouse can be a quite adventure. I'm not gonna say it's bad. I'm not gonna say it's difficult. It's one adventure. I have done that. I have dated some Japanese, but I have not done any marriage. This is my first marriage, and I hope this is gonna be the last marriage for that matter. So, yeah, that makes sense. Adventure, it is, and every marriage is adventure. Don't get me wrong. It does not really, every marriage is the adventure and the fun and difficult time. But interracial couple is something to. It's fun to talk about. Not fun to talk about. It's fun. No, that's not a good way to. It's not fun to look at. It's just fun to learn from it. There we go. Yep, Heather, yay! We said the same thing. I mean, marriage itself is already an adventure. It is an adventure. Any type of marriage, I wouldn't say that marriage is the end of the man's life. It's the starting of the new adventure. I thought that was the end, but it wasn't actually the end. That was the adventure of something else. I shouldn't be talking about those things at night because I might spill something I shouldn't have said. I don't want to edit this live streaming because that's my whole point of not editing, right? I don't edit this live streaming, and if I have to edit for the purpose of cutting what I said, that ruins the whole purpose. So I will be quiet by now. I hope I will see you next Tuesday around the same time. I hope you have a good night. Bye bye.